everybody, and welcome to the Penelope Possum channel with me, your hostess, Penelope the Possum. Okay, so I ended up figuring out what the problem was with my Minecraft. I have fixed the problem. The problem is fixed. We will be playing it next time. But for now, we're good. But I have connected my voice mod to my phone. What does that mean? It means I have the ability to start anything. Any kind of, sounds I want. So, now, I do have to have it open, which makes sense on my phone and on my computer. It's a small price to pay for being able to choose whatever sound effects I want whenever I want. Also, I'd love people to suggest ideas for what we're gonna do for Spooky Scary Saturday 69, baby. We're at number 69. Let's go. Next time it's 69. Yeah, help me try to find good ideas for 69. I'm fielding almost all suggestions as long as they're not inappropriate, and by inappropriate I mean sexual. Meaning I'm not going to do anything sexual. I'm not doing it. You can't make me. Don't mind me. There we go. Alright. Now I could put up some tunes. Here we go. Oh, perfect. This is perfect. Oh yeah. Okay. We're gonna have some creepy campfire ambiance. Ooh, spooky. Okay. You guys ready? Alright. This is Jeff the Killer by Scissor. Published April 10th, 2013. Hello! I figured out how to make sounds happen through my phone. We're reading Jeff the Killer, which is a unique one. It was published in 2013, which is around the time when all this was really starting to take off. So, let's judge it based off of that. Old fart, your message didn't pop up. Weird. Anyways. And the story reads, ominous excerpt from a local newspaper. Ominous unknown killer is still at large. After weeks of unexplained murders, the ominous unknown killer is still on the rise. After little evidence has been found, a young boy states that he survived one of the killer's attacks and bravely tells his story. "I had a bad dream. I woke up in the middle of the night," says the boy. "I saw that for some reason the window was open, and even though I remember it being closed before I went to bed, I got up and shut it once more. Afterwards, I simply crawled under my covers and tried to get back to sleep. That's when I had a strange feeling, like someone was watching me. I looked up and nearly jumped out of my bed. There in a little ray of light illuminating between my curtains." This is a very well-spoken young man. "You hit enter by accident?" "Oh, okay. Didn't know you could do that. Okay." "Were a pair of two eyes. These weren't just regular eyes. They were dark, ominous eyes. They were bordered in black and just plain out terrified me. That's when I saw his mouth, a long, horrendous smile that made every hair on my body stand up. The figure stood there, watching me. Finally, after what seemed like forever, he said it. A simple phrase, but said in a way that only a madman could speak. He said, 'Go to sleep.' I let out a scream. That's what sent him at me. He pulled up a knife, aiming at my heart. He jumped up on top of my bed. I fought him back. I kicked and punched and rolled around and turned to knock him off me. That's when my dad busted in. The man threw the knife, went through into my dad's shoulder. The man probably would have finished him off if one of the neighbors hadn't alerted the police. I drove into the parking lot and ran towards the door. The man turned and ran down the hallway. I heard a smash, like glass breaking. As I came out of my room, I saw the window that was pointing towards the back of my house was broken. I looked out to see him vanish into the distance. I can tell you one thing. I will never forget that face. Those cold, evil eyes. That psychotic smile. They will never leave my head. Police are still on the lookout for this man. If you see anyone that fits the description in the story, please contact your local police department. Jeff and his family had just moved into the new neighborhood. This is way too loud. I'm going to adjust the volume. There we go. That should be better. Turning up my microphone because earlier the cats were being absolute ballbusters and being so crazy. I had to turn it down real low. Jeff and his family had just moved into a new neighborhood. His dad had just gotten a promotion at work. I thought it'd be best to live in one of those fancy neighborhoods. Jeff and his brother Lou couldn't complain though. A new, better house. What was not to love? As they were getting unpacked, one of their neighbors came by. "Hello," she said. "There should be a space there." "I'm Barbara. I live across the street from you. Well, I just wanted to introduce myself and introduce my son," She turns around and calls her son over. "Billy, these are our new neighbors." Billy said hi and ran back to play in his yard. "Well," said Jeff's mom, "I'm Margaret, and this is my husband, Peter. And my two sons, Jeff and Lou, who has a terrible name because I'm an awful parent." Like, you name one kid Jeff. That's a completely normal name. But Lou? Liu? Weird. So weird. They introduced themselves, and then Barbara invited them to her son's birthday. Jeff and his brother were about to object when their mother said that they would love to. When Jeff and his family are done packing, I think they meant unpacking, Jeff went up to his mom. "Mom, why would you invite us to some kid's party? If you haven't noticed, I'm not some dumb kid." "Jeff," said his mother, "we just moved here. We should show that we want to spend time with our neighbors. Now we're going to that party and it's final." Jeff started to talk but stopped himself, knowing that he couldn't do anything. Whenever his mom said something, it was final. He walked up to his room and plopped down on his bed. He sat there looking at his ceiling when suddenly he got a weird feeling. Not so much pain, but a weird feeling. He dismissed it as just some random feeling. He then heard his mother calm down to get him stuff, and he walked down to get it. I'm gonna tell you guys, I'm probably gonna have some trouble reading this, because you'll see. The next day, Jeff walked down the stairs to get breakfast and got ready for school. I'm also going to add words where I feel like it, because there are words that need to happen in this story that don't happen. As he sat there eating his breakfast, he once again got that feeling. This time it was stronger. It gave him a slight tugging pain. Once again he dismissed it. As he and Lou finished breakfast, he walked down to the bus stop. He sat there waiting for the bus, and then all of a sudden, some kid on a skateboard jumped over them, only inches above their laps. They both jumped back in surprise. "Hey, what the hell?" Kid landed and turned back to them, kicked his skateboard bug, and caught in his hands. This kid seems to be about 12, 1 year younger than Jeff. He wears an Aeropostale shirt and brick blue jeans. Why was that important? Well, looks like we got some new meat. Suddenly, two other kids appeared. One was super skinny and the other was huge. "Well, since you're new here, I'd like to introduce ourselves. Over there is Keith." Jeff and Lou looked over to the skinny kid. He had a dopey face that you'd expect a sidekick to have. "And he's Troy." They looked over to the fat kid. Talk about a tub of lard. This kid looked like he hadn't exercised since he was crawling. "And I," said the first kid, "am Randy. Now, for all the kids in this neighborhood, there's a small price for bus fare, if you catch my drift." Lou stood up, ready to punch the lights out of the kid's eyes. One of his friends pulled a knife on him. "I'd hoped you'd be more cooperative, but it seems we must do this the hard way." Kid walked up to Lou and took his wallet out of his pocket. Jeff got that feeling again. Now it was a truly strong, burning sensation. He stood up, but Lou gestured him to sit down. Jeff ignored him and walked up to the kid. Listen here, you little punk. Give back my bro's wallet or else. Randy put the wallet in his pocket and pulled out his own knife. Oh? And what'll you do? Just as he finished the sentence, Jeff popped the kid in the nose. As Randy reached for his face, Jeff grabbed the kid's wrist and broke it. Hold on. There we go. That was the sound of his wrist breaking, except that's not really what it sounds like. I would know from first hand. I've broken my wrist twice. Breaking bone does not sound like I expected it to. It doesn't sound so much like it does in the cartoons. It has a bit more of a hollow quality to it from what I remember, but it was years and years ago. Randy screamed and Jeff grabbed the knife from his hand. Troy and Keith rushed Jeff, but Jeff was too quick. He threw Randy to the ground. Keith lashed out at him, but Jeff ducked and stabbed him in the arm. Keith dropped his knife and fell to the ground, screaming. Troy rushed him too, but Jeff didn't even need the knife. He just punched Troy straight in the stomach, and Troy went down. As he fell, he puked all over. Lou could do nothing but look in amazement at Jeff. Jeff, how'd you? Was all he said. They saw the bus coming and knew they'd be blamed for the whole thing. So they started running as fast as they could. As they ran, they looked back and saw the bus driver rushing over to Randy and the others. As Jeff and Lou made it to school, they didn't dare tell what happened. All they did was sit and listen. Lou just thought of that as his brother beating up a few kids. Jeff knew it was more. It was something scary. As he got that feeling, he felt how powerful it was. The urge to just hurt someone. He didn't like the way it sounded, but he couldn't help but feeling happy. And he felt that strange feeling go away and stay away the entire day of school. Even as he walked home due to the whole thing near the bus stop, and how now he probably couldn't be taking the bus anymore. He felt happy. When he got home, his parents asked him how his day was. He said in a somewhat ominous tone, "It was a wonderful day." Next morning, he heard a knock at his front door. He walked down to find 2 police officers at the door, his mother looking back at him with an angry look. I think somebody accidentally copy-pasted this part from the middle. Jeff, these police officers tell me you attacked 3 kids. And that wasn't regular fighting, and that they were stabbed, son. Jeff's gaze fell to the floor, showing his mother that was true. Oh shoot, I forgot that was his dad. Mom, They were the ones who pulled the knives on me and Lou. Son, said one of the cops, we found 3 kids, 2 stabbed and 1 having a bruise on his stomach. And we have witnesses proving that you fled the scene. Now what does that tell us? Jeff knew it was no use. He could say him and Lou had been attacked, but then there was no proof of them. It's not them who attacked first. It couldn't say they weren't fleeing, because truth be told, they were. So Jeff couldn't defend himself or Lou. Son, call down your brother. Jeff couldn't do it because he was the one who beat up all the kids. Sir, it was me. I was the one who beat up the kids. He tried to hold me back, but he couldn't stop me. The cop looked at his partner and they both nodded. Well, kids, looks like a year in juvie. Wait, says Lou. They all looked up to see him holding a knife. The officers pulled their guns and locked them on Lou. It was me. I beat up those little punks. I have the marks to prove it. He lifted up his sleeves to reveal cuts and bruises as if he was in a struggle. Son, just put the knife down, said the officer. Lou held up the knife and dropped it to the ground. He put his hands up and walked over to the cops. No, Lou, it was me. I did it. Jeff had tears running down his face. Oh, poor bro. Trying to take the blame for what I did. Well, take me away. The police led Lou out to the patrol car. Lou, tell them it was me. Tell them. I was the one who beat up those kids. Jeff's mother put her hands on his shoulders. You could just say Margaret. Jeff, please, you don't have to lie. We know what to do. You could stop. Jeff watched helplessly as the cop car speeds up with Lou inside. A few minutes later, Jeff's dad pulled into the driveway, seeing Jeff's face and knowing something was wrong. Son, what is it? Jeff couldn't answer. His vocal cords were strained from crying. Instead, Jeff's mother walked his father inside to break the bad news to him as Jeff wept in the driveway. After about an hour or so, Jeff walked back into the house, seeing that both his parents were shocked, sad, and disappointed. He couldn't look at them. He couldn't see how they thought of Lou. When it was his fault, he just went to sleep, trying to get the whole thing off his mind. 2 days went by with no word from Lou at GDC. No friends to hang out with. Nothing but sadness and guilt. That is until Saturday, when Jeff is woken up by his mother with a happy, sunshiny face. Jeff, it's the day, she said as she opened up the curtains and let light flood into his room. What's today? Asked Jeff as he stirs awake. Why, it's Billy's party. He was now fully awake. Mom, you're joking, right? You don't expect me to go to some kid's party after... There's a long pause. Jeff, we both know what happened. I think this party could be the thing that brightens up the past days. Now get dressed. Jeff's mother walked out of the room and downstairs to get ready herself. He fought himself to get up. He picked out a random shirt and a pair of jeans and walked downstairs. He saw his mother and father all dressed up. His his mother in a dress and his father in a suit. He thought, why would they ever wear such fancy clothes to a kid's party? "Son, is that all you're gonna wear?" said Jeff's mom. Again, you can just call them by their names. "Better than wearing too much." Better than... that's just gonna be his voice. "Better than wearing too much," he said. His mother pushed down the feeling to yell at him and hit it with a smile. "Now, Jeff, we may be overdressed, but this is how you go if you want to make an impression." "Oh, now, Jeff, we may be overdressed, but this is how you go if you want to make an impression," said his father. Jeff grunted and went back to his room. He yelled upstairs, because his room is upstairs, see? "Just picked out something," called his mother. He looked around in his closet for what he would call fancy. He found a pair of black dress pants he had for special occasions and an undershirt. He couldn't find a shirt to go with it, though. He looked around and found only striped and patterned shirts, none of which go with dress pants. Finally, he found a white hoodie and put it on. "You're wearing that?" they both said. His mother looked at her watch. "Oh, no time to change. Let's just go," she said as she herded Jeff and his father out the door. They crossed the street over to Barbara and Billy's house. They knocked at the door and it appeared that Barbara, just like his parents, was just like his parents, way overdressed. As they walked inside, all Jeff could see were adults, no kids. "The kids are out in the yard, Jeff. How about you go out and meet some of them?" said Barbara. I don't know why I gave her a southern accent all of a sudden, but let's roll with it. Jeff walked outside to a yard full of kids. They were running around in weird cowboy costumes and shooting each other with plastic guns. He might as well be standing in a Toys R Us. Suddenly a kid came up to him and handed him a toy gun and hat. "Hey, wanna play?" he said. "No, kid, I'm too old for this stuff." "You're never too old for that stuff." Hush, Jeff. You're like 11. You are not too old to be running around with a tiny plastic cowboy hat and a little gun going pew-pew at other kids. You're never too old to have fun. Any kind of fun, really. My ear. Jeez. The kid looked at him with that weird puppy dog face. "Please?" said the kid. "Fine," said Jeff. "This is really bad. The writing's all over the place." He put on the hat and started to pretend to shoot at the kids. At first he thought it was totally ridiculous, but then he started to actually have fun. It might not have been super cool, but it was the first time he had done something that took his mind off of Lou. So he played with the kids for a while, until he heard a noise. A weird rolling noise. Then it hit him. Randy, Troy, and Keith all jumped over the fence on their skateboards. Jeff dropped the fake gun and ripped off the hat. Randy looked at Jeff with a burning hatred. "Hello. Jeff, is it? We've got some unfinished business. Jeff saw his bruised nose. I think we're even. I beat the crap out of you, and you get my brother sent to JDC. Randy got an angry look in his eyes. Oh no, I don't go for even. I go for winning. You may have kicked our asses that one day, but not today. As he said that, Randy rushed at Jeff. They both fell to the ground, and Randy punched Jeff in the nose. Jeff grabbed him by the ears and headbutted him. Jeff pushed Randy off of him. Both rose to their feet. Kids were screaming, and parents were running out of the house. Troy and Keith both pulled guns out of their pockets. No one interrupts, or guts will fly, they said. Randy pulled a knife on Jeff and stabbed it into his shoulder. Jeff screamed and fell to his knees. Randy started kicking him in the face. After 3 kicks, Jeff grabs his foot and twists it, causing Randy to fall to the ground. Jeff stood up and walked towards the back door. Troy grabbed him. Need some help? He picks up Jeff by the back of the collar and throws him through the patio door. As Jeff tries to stand, he is kicked down to the ground. Randy repeatedly starts kicking Jeff until he starts to cough up blood. Come on, Jeff, fight me! He picks up Jeff and throws him into the kitchen. Randy sees a bottle of vodka on the counter and smashes the glass over Jeff's head. Fight! He throws Jeff back into the living room. Come on, Jeff, look at me! Jeff glances up, his face riddled with blood. I was the one who got your brother sent to JDC, and now you're just gonna sit there and let him rot in there for a whole year? You should be ashamed. Jeff starts to get up. Oh, finally, you stand up and fight. Jeff is now on his feet, blood and vodka on his face. Once again, he gets that strange feeling. The one in which he hasn't felt for a while. Finally, he's up, says Randy as he runs at Jeff. That's when it happens. Something inside Jeff snaps. His psyche is destroyed. All rational thinking is gone. And all he can do is kill. What the fuck? He grabs Randy and pile drives him into the ground. He gets on top of him and punches him straight in the heart. The punch causes Randy's heart to stop. No, the fuck it doesn't. He's an 11-year-old kid. I do not know a single 11-year-old who has the raw upper body strength to punch someone so hard that their heart stops. This is bull. As Randy gasps for breath, Jeff hammers down on him. Punch after punch, blood gushes from Randy's body until he takes one final breath and dies. Everyone is looking at Jeff now. The parents, the crying kids, even Troy and Keith, although they easily break from their gaze and point their guns at Jeff. Jeff sees the guns trained on him and runs for the stairs. As he runs, Troy and Keith let out. As he runs, Troy and Keith fire on him. Open fire on him. Each shot missing. Jeff runs up the stairs. He hears Troy and Keith follow up behind as they let out their final rounds of bullets. Jeff ducks into the bathroom. grabs the towel rack and rips off the wall. Troy and Keith race in, knives ready. Troy swings his knife at Jeff, who backs away and bangs the towel rack into Troy's face. Troy goes down hard, and all that's left is Keith. He is more agile than Troy, though. He ducks when Jeff swings the towel rack. He dropped the knife and grabbed Jeff by the neck, pushed him into the wall. A thing of bleach fell down on top of him from the top shelf. It burnt both of them, and they started to scream. Jeff wiped up his eyes the best he could. He pulled back the towel rack and swung it straight into Keith's head. As he lay there bleeding to death, he let out an ominous smile. "What's so funny?" asked Jeff. Keith pulled out a lighter and switched it on. "What's funny," he said, "is that you're covered in bleach and alcohol." Jeff's eyes widened as Keith threw the lighter at him. As soon as the flame made contact with him, the flames ignited the alcohol in the vodka. While the alcohol burned him, the bleach bleached his skin. Jeff let out a horrible screech as he caught on fire. He tried to roll out the fire, but it was no use. The alcohol made him a walking inferno. He ran down the hall and fell down the stairs. Everybody started screaming as they saw Jeff, now a man on fire, drop to the ground, nearly dead. The last thing Jeff saw was his mother and the other parents trying to extinguish the flame. That's when he passed out. When Jeff woke, he had a cast wrapped around his face. He couldn't see anything, but he felt a cast on his shoulder. Bandages. Those are bandages. And stitches all over his body. He tried to stand up, but he realized there was some tube in his arm. And when he tried to get up, it fell out and a nurse rushed in. "I don't think you can get out of bed just yet," she said as she put him back in his bed and reinserted the tube. Jeff sat there with no vision, no idea of what his surroundings were. Finally, after hours, he heard his mother. "Honey, are you okay?" she asked. Jeff couldn't answer, though. His face was covered and he was unable to speak. "Oh, honey, I have great news. After all the witnesses told police that Randy confessed Oh, honey, I have great news. After all the witnesses told the police that Randy confessed to trying to attack you, they decided to let Lou go." This made Jeff almost bolt up, stopping halfway, remembering the tube coming out of his arm. "He'll be out by tomorrow, and then you two will be able to be together again. Do you see the wording for this is absolutely atrocious?" Jeff's mother hugs him and says her goodbyes. The next couple of weeks were those where Jeff was visited by his family. Then came the day where his bandages were to be removed. His family members were all there to see it. What he looked like. As the doctors unwrapped the bandages from Jeff's face, everyone was on the edge of their seats. They waited till the last bandage holding the cover over his face was almost removed. "Let's hope for the best," said the doctor. He quickly pulls the cloth, letting the rest fall from Jeff's face. Jeff's mother screams at the sight of his face. Lou and Jeff's dad were staring, awestruck at his face. What happened to my face?" Jeff said. He rushed out of bed and ran to the bathroom. He looked into the mirror and saw the cause of the distress. His face. It's horrible. His lips were burnt into a deep shade of red. His face turned into a pure white color, and his hair singed from brown to black. He slowly put his hand up to his face, and it had sort of a leathery feel to it now. He looked back at his family, and back at the mirror. "Jeff," said Lou, "it's not that bad." "Not bad," said Jeff. "It's perfect." His family was equally surprised. Jeff started laughing uncontrollably, and his parents noticed that his left eye and hand were twitching. Jeff, are you okay?" "Okay? I've never felt more happy. Ha 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 ha. Look at me. This face goes perfectly with me." He couldn't stop laughing. He stroked his face, feeling it, looking at it in the mirror. What caused this? Well, you might recall when Jeff was fighting Randy, something in his mind, his sanity snapped. Now he was left as a crazy killing machine. That his parents didn't know, though. "Doctor," said Jeff's mom, "is my son, alright in the head?" "Oh yes, this behavior is typical of patients that have taken on very large amounts of painkillers. If his behavior doesn't change in a few weeks, bring him back here and we'll give him a psychological test." "Thank you, doctor," Jeff's mother went over to Jeff. "Jeff, sweetie, it's time to go." Jeff looks away from the mirror. His face still formed into a crazy smile. "Okay, mommy. Ha ha ha." His mother took him by the shoulder and took him to get his clothes. "This is what came in," said the lady at the desk. Jeff's mom looked down to see the black dress pants and white hoodie her son wore. They were now clean of blood, stitched together. Jeff's mother led him into his room and made him put his clothes on. Then they left, not knowing that this was the final day of their life. Later that night, Jeff's mother woke to a sound coming from the bathroom. It sounded as if someone was crying. She slowly walked over to see what it was. When she looked into the bathroom, she saw a horrendous sight. Jeff had taken a knife and carved a smile into his cheeks. Now, I don't know if anybody else is imagining this, but when I think of that, and I think of that in my head and picture it in my head, I imagine someone like taking a knife and drawing a smiley face on their cheeks. "Jeff, what are you doing?" asked his mother. Jeff looked over to his mother. "I couldn't keep smiling, Mommy. It hurt after a while. Now I can smile forever." Jeff's mother noticed his eyes, ringed and black. "Jeff, your eyes." His eyes were seemingly never closing. "I couldn't see my face. I got tired and my eyes started to close. I burned out the eyelids so I could forever see myself. My new face." Jeff's mother slowly started to back away, seeing that her son was going insane. "What's wrong, Mommy? Aren't I beautiful?" "Yes, son," she said. "Yes, you are. Let me go get Daddy." so he can see your face. She ran into the room and shook Jeff's dad from his sleep. Honey, go get the gun, She stopped in the doorway as she saw Jeff holding a knife. Mommy, you lied. That's the last thing they hear as Jeff rushes them with the knife, gutting both of them. His brother Lou woke up, startled by some noise. He didn't hear anything else, so he just shut his eyes and tried to go back to sleep. As he was on the border of slumber, he got the strangest feeling someone was watching him. He looked up before Jeff's hand covered his mouth. He slowly raised the knife, ready to plunge it into Lou. Lou slouched there and just tried to escape Jeff's grip. Shh, Jeff said. Just go to sleep. And that was Jeff the Killer. Now, there were some pieces of this story missing, I know, because I have read this before. But, clearly the author got the feedback from this and, edited it. My goodness, that was more than I was ready for. Let's find a different story to read real quick. That was rough. Yeah. It's an early creepypasta. You really have to remember that it was an early creepypasta. Like, you really have to remember that it was an early creepypasta. That it was just a lot. Yeah, it was very much more of a gore thing. Oop. Nope. Nope. Yeah, I mean, I kind of don't feel too bad for Jeff, I guess. Because clearly there was already issues deep within his mind, and it was just a matter of time before something set him off. Anyways, this should be the last, ooh, that one's a bit beefy. There we go, suggested reading. I keep seeing this one. Oh my gosh. Why are all these so long? Okay, let's just try to read through this. This is No End House. Let me start by saying that Peter Terry was addicted to heroin. We were friends in college and continued to be after I graduated. Notice that I said I. He dropped out after 2 years of barely cutting it. After I moved out of the dorms and into a small apartment, I didn't see Peter as much. We would talk online every now and again, aimless king in pre-Facebook years. There was a period when he wasn't online for about 5 weeks straight. I wasn't worried. He was a pretty notorious flake and drug addict, and so I assumed he just stopped caring. And one night, I saw him log on. Before I could initiate conversation, he sent me a message. David, man, we need to talk. It was then who told me about the No End House. We got that name because no one had ever reached the final exit. The rules were pretty simple and cliche. Reach the final room of the building and you win $500. There were 9 rooms in all. The house was located outside the city, roughly 4 miles from my house. Apparently Peter tried it and failed. He was a heroin and who knows what the fuck addict. So I figured the drugs got the best of him and he wigged out at a paper ghost or something. He told me it would be too much for anyone. It was unnatural. I didn't believe him. I told him I'd check it out next night, no matter how hard he tried to convince me otherwise. $500 just sounded too good to be true. I had to go. I set out the following night. When I arrived, I immediately noticed something strange about the building. Have you ever read or seen something that shouldn't be scary, but for some reason a chill crawls up your spine? I walked toward the building and the feeling of uneasiness only intensified as I opened the front door. I feel like this isn't the right... This seems about right. My heart slowed and I let out a relieved sigh as I entered. The room looked like a normal hotel lobby, decorated for Halloween. A sign was posted in place of a worker. It read, "Room 1 this way, 8 more follow. Reach the end and you win." I chuckled and made my way to the first door. first area was almost laughable. The decor resembled the Halloween aisle of a Kmart, complete with sheet ghosts and the animatronics zombies that gave a static growl when you passed by. The far end was an exit. The only door besides it was the one I entered through. I brushed through fake spiderwebs and headed for the second room. I was greeted by a fog as I entered the door to room number 2. The room definitely upped the ante in terms of technology. Not only was there a font machine, but a bat hung from the ceiling, flew in a circle. Scary. They seemed to have a Halloween soundtrack that one would find in a 99-cent store and loop somewhere in the room. I couldn't see a stereo, but I guess they must have used a PA system. I stepped over a few toy rats that wheeled around and walked with a puss chest to the next area. I reached for the doorknob and my heart sank to my knees. I did not want to open that door. A feeling of dread hit me so hard I could barely even think. Logic overtook me after a few terrified moments, and I shook off and entered the room. Room 3 is when things began to change. On the surface, it had looked like a normal room. There was a chair in the middle of the wood-paneled floor. A single lamp in the corner did a poor job of lighting the area, casting a few shadows across the floor and walls. That was the problem, though. Shadows, plural. With the exception of the chairs, there were others. I had barely locked in the door and I was already terrified. It was at that moment I knew something wasn't right. I didn't even think as I automatically tried to open the door I came through. It was locked from the other side. That set me off. Was someone locking the doors as I progressed? There is no way. I would have heard them. Was it a mechanical lock that was set automatically? Maybe, but I was too scared to really think. I turned back to the room and the shadows were gone. The chair shadow remained, but the others were gone. I began to slowly walk. I used to hallucinate when I was a kid, so I wrote off the shadows as a figment of my imagination. I began to feel better as I made it to the halfway point of the room. I looked down as I took my steps. That's when I saw it, or didn't see it. My shadow wasn't there. I didn't have time to scream. I ran as fast as I could to the other door and flung myself without thinking into the room beyond. The fourth room was possibly the most disturbing. As I closed the door, all light seemed to be sucked out and be put back into the previous room. I stood there, surrounded by darkness, not able to move. I am not afraid of the dark, and have never been, but I was absolutely terrified. All sight had left me. I held my hand in front of my face, and if I didn't know what I was doing, I would have never been able to tell. Darkness doesn't describe it. I couldn't hear anything. It was dead silence. When you're in a soundproof room, you can still hear yourself breathing. You can still hear yourself being alive. I couldn't. I began to stumble forward for a few moments, my rapidly beating heart the only thing I could feel. Good morning. I started reading creepypastas while you were sleeping. I hope I didn't wake you. Good. I wasn't even sure there was one this time. The silence was then broken by a low hum. I felt something behind me. I spun wildly, but could barely even see my nose. I knew it was there, though. Regardless of how dark it was, I knew something was there. The hum grew louder. It seemed to surround me. But I knew whatever was causing the noise was in front of me, inching closer. I took a step back. I never felt that kind of fear. I really can't describe true fear. I wasn't even scared that I was gonna die. I was scared of what the alternative was. I was afraid of what this thing had in store for me. Then the lights flashed for a second and I saw it. I saw nothing. I know I saw nothing there. The room was again plunged into darkness and the hum became a wild screech. I screamed in protest. I couldn't hear this goddamn sound for another minute. I ran backwards, away from the noise, and fumbled for the door handle. I turned and fell into room 5. Before I describe room 5, you have to understand something. I am not a drug addict. I have had no history of drug abuse or any kind of psychosis, short of the childhood hallucinations I mentioned earlier. And those were only when I was really just tired or waking up. I entered the no-end house with a clear head. After following in from the previous room, my view of room 5 was from my back, looking up at the ceiling. What I saw didn't scare me, it simply surprised me. Trees had grown into the room and towered above my head. The ceilings in this room were taller than the others, which made me think I was in the center of the house. I got up off the floor, dusted myself, and took a look around. This was definitely the biggest room of them all. I couldn't even see the door from where I was. Various brush and trees must have blocked my line of sight from the exit. Up to this point, I figured the rooms were going to get scarier. But this was paradise compared to the last room. I also assumed whatever was in room 4 stayed back there. I was so incredibly wrong. As I made my way deeper into the room, I began to hear what one would hear if they were in a forest. Chirping bugs, the occasional flap of birds. Oh, hold on, forest. Haha, forest ambience. Seemed to be my only company. That was the thing that bothered me the most. I heard the bugs and other animals, but I didn't see them. I began to wonder how big this house was. From outside, when I first walked into it, it looked like a regular house, but it was definitely on the bigger side. There was almost an entire forest here. A canopy covered my view of the ceiling, but I assumed it was still there, however high it was. I couldn't see any walls either. The only way I knew it was still inside is the floor matched the other rooms with standard dark wood paneling. I kept walking, hoping that the next tree I passed would reveal the door. But after a few moments of walking, I felt a mosquito fly onto my arm. I shook it off and kept going. A second later, I felt 10 more land all over my skin. I felt them crawl up and down my arms and legs, and a few made their way across my face. I flailed wildly to get them all off, but they kept crawling. I looked down and let out a muffled scream, more of a whimper than I'll be honest. I didn't see a single bug. Not one bug was on me, but I could feel them crawl. I could hear them fly by my face and sting my skin, but I couldn't see a single one. I dropped to the ground and began to roll wildly. It was desperate. I hated bugs, especially ones I couldn't see or touch. But those bugs could touch me, and they were everywhere. That sounds like a fucking horror show. Oh my god. Could you imagine? Nah. I began to crawl. I had no idea where I was going. The entrance was nowhere in the sight, and I still hadn't seen the exit, so I just crawled, my skin wriggling with the presence of those phantom bugs. After it seemed like hours, I found the door. I grabbed the nearest tree and propped myself up, mindlessly slapping my arms and legs to no avail. I tried to run, but I couldn't. I have to wonder what's happening to him. Is he going insane? My body was exhausted from crawling and dealing with whatever it was that was on me. I took a few shaky steps to the door, grabbing each tree on the way for support. I was only a few feet away when I heard it, the low hum from before. It was coming from next to the door, and it was getting deeper. I could almost feel it inside my body, like when you stand next to an amp at a concert. Right? Like, you'd have to be going nuts if you were feeling bugs all over you and not seeing bugs, except for, like, you know how when someone mentions lice, you'll start feeling itchy? It could be a case of that, but nobody mentioned anything to this guy. The feeling of the bugs on me lessened as the hum grew louder. As I placed my hand on the doorknob, the bugs were completely gone, but I couldn't bring myself to turn the knob. I knew that if I let go, the bugs would return, and there was no way I'd make it back to room 4. I just stood there, head pressed up against the door marked 6, and my hands shakily grasping the knob. The hum was so loud I couldn't even hear myself pretend to think. There was nothing I could do but move on. Room 6 was next, and room 6 was hell. Okay, we're gonna find... Nope. Here we go, this should be good. I closed the door behind me, my eyes held shut and my ears ringing. The hum was surrounding me as the door clicked into place. I cannot find a good sound for this. There we go, that should be fine. The hum was surrounding me. As the door clicked into place, the hum was gone. I opened my eyes in surprise, and the door I shut was gone. It was just a wall now. I looked around in shock. The room was identical to room 3, the same chair and lamp, but with the correct amount of shadows this time. The only difference is there was no exit door, and the one I came through was gone. As I said before, I had no previous issues in terms of mental stability. But at that moment, I fell into what I now know was insanity. I didn't scream. I didn't make a sound. At first, I scratched softly. The wall was tough, but I knew the door was there somewhere. I just knew it was. I scratched it where the doorknob was. I clawed at the wall frantically with both my hands, my nails being filed down to the skin against the wood. I fell silently to my knees. The only sound in the room was my incessant scratching against the wall. I knew it was there. The door was there. I just knew it was there. If I could just get past this wall. Are you alright? I jumped off the ground and spun into motion. I leaned against the wall, and when I saw what it was that spoke to me. This day I regret ever turning around. There was a little girl. She was wearing a soft white dress that went down to her ankles. Okay, I think that's enough of that for now. I'll just play sound effects as I need. No more of that. She had long blonde hair down to the middle of her back, and white skin and blue eyes. She was the most frightening thing I had ever seen, and I know nothing in my life will ever be as unnerving as what I saw in her. While looking at her, I saw something else where she stood. I saw what looked like a man's body, only larger than normal, covered in hair. He was naked from head to toe, but his head was not human, and his toes were hooves. It wasn't the devil, but at that moment it might as well have been. The form of the head of a ram and the snout of a wolf. It was horrifying. It was synonymous with the little girl in front of me. They were the same form. I really can't describe it, but I saw them at the same time. They shared the same spot in the room, but it was like I was looking at two separate dimensions. When I saw the girl, I saw the form, and when I saw the form, I saw the girl. I couldn't speak. I could have barely even see. My mind was revolting against what it was attempting to process. I had been scared before in my life, and I had never been more scared than when I was trapped in the 4th room. But that was before room 6. I just stood there, staring whatever it was that spoke to me. There was no exit. I was trapped here with it. And then it spoke again. David, you should have listened. When it spoke, I heard the words of the little girl. The other form spoke through my mind in a voice I won't attempt to describe. There was no other sound. The voice just kept repeating that sentence over and over again in my mind, and I agreed. I didn't know what to do. I was slipping into madness, yet I couldn't take my eyes off of what was in front of me. I dropped to the floor. I thought I passed out, but the room wouldn't let me. I just wanted it to end. I was on my side, my eyes wide open, the form staring down at me. Scurrying across the floor in front of me was the battery-powered rats from the 2nd room. The house was toying for me. For some reason, seeing the rat pulled my mind back from whatever depths it headed. I looked around the room. I was getting out of here. I was determined to escape the house and live and never think about this place again. I knew this room was hell, and I wasn't ready to take up a residency. At first, it was just my eyes that moved. I searched the walls for any kind of opening. The room wasn't that big, so it didn't take long to soak up the entire layout. The demon still taunted me, the voice growing louder as the form stayed rooted to the spot where it stood. I placed my hand on the floor, lifted myself to all fours, and started to scan the wall behind me. I saw something I couldn't believe. The form was now right at my back, whispering into my mind about how I shouldn't have come. I felt its breath on the back of my neck. I refused to turn around. A large rectangle was scratched into the wood. A small dent chipped away in the center of it. Right in front of my eyes, I saw the large 7 I had mindlessly etched into the wall. I knew that what it was. Room 7 was just beyond that wall where room 5 was moments ago. I don't know how I had done it. Maybe it was just my state of mind at the time, but I had created the door. I knew I had. In my madness, I scratched into the wall what I needed the most. An exit into the next room. Room 7 was close. I knew the demon was right behind me, but for some reason it couldn't touch me. I closed my eyes and put both my hands on the large 7 in front of me. I pushed and pushed as hard as I could. The demon was now screaming in my ear. It told me I was never leaving. It told me that this was the end, but I wasn't going to die. I was going to live there in room 6 with it. I wasn't. I pushed and screamed at the top of my lungs. I knew I was going to push through the wall eventually. You have a weasel. She's attacking a lollipop stick. She is trying to do that lollipop a murder. Kitten, why are you full of murderous intent? Thank you, off-screen hands, for delivering a kitten. She is full of murder. My kitten is full of murder. What do I do? How do I fix my kitten being full of murders? How do you fix a kitten being full of murder? I clenched my eyes shut and screamed, and the demon was gone. I was left in silence. I turned around slowly, and I was greeted by the room as it was when I entered. Just a chair and a lamp. I couldn't believe it, but I didn't have time to waste. I turned back to the 7, jumped back slightly. What I saw was a door. It wasn't the one I scratched in, but a regular door with a large 7 on it. My whole body was shaking. It took me a while to turn the knob. I just stood there for a while, staring at the door. I couldn't even stay in room 6. But if this was only room 6, I couldn't even imagine what 7 had in store. Stop trying to eat my shoe. I must have stood there for an hour, just staring at the 7. Finally, with a deep breath, I twisted the knob and opened the door to room 7. I stumbled through the door, mentally exhausted and physically weak. The door behind me closed and I realized where I was. I was outside. Not outside like room 5, but actually outside. I wanted to cry. I fell to my knees and tried, but I couldn't. I was finally out of that hell. I didn't even care about the prize I was promised. I turned and saw the door I just went through was the entrance. I walked to my car and drove home, thinking of how a nice shower sounded. As I pulled up to my house, I felt uneasy. The joy of leaving no ended house had faded, and the dread was slowly building in my stomach. I shook it off as residual from the house and made it my way to the front door. Immediately went to my room. On my bed was my cat, Baskerville. He's the first living thing I had seen all night, and I reached to pet him. He hissed and swiped my hand. I recoiled in shock, as he never acted like that. Whatever, he's an old cat, I thought. I jumped in the shower and got ready, for I was expecting to be a sleepless night. After my shower, I went to the kitchen to make something eat. I descended the stairs and turned into the family room. I saw what would forever be burned in my mind, however. My parents were laying on the ground, naked and covered in blood. They had been mutilated to near unidentifiable states. Their limbs had been removed and placed next to their bodies, and their heads sat on their chests facing me. The most unsettling part was their expressions. They were smiling, as though they were happy to see me. I vomited and sobbed right there in the family room. I didn't know what had happened. They didn't even live with me at the time. It was a mess, and then I saw it, a door that was never there before, a door with a large 8 scrawled on it in blood. I was still in the house. I was standing in my family room, but it was room 7. The face of my parents smiled wider as I realized this. They weren't my parents. They couldn't be, but they looked exactly like them. The door marked 8 was across the room, behind the mutilated bodies in front of me. I knew I had to move on, but at that moment I gave up. The smiley faces tore into my mind. They grounded me where I stood. I vomited again and nearly collapsed. And the hum returned. It was louder than ever, and it filled the house and shook the walls. The hum compelled me forward. I began to move slowly, making my way closer to the door and the bodies. I could barely stand, let alone walk. The closer I got to my parents, the closer I came to suicide. Should have beeped that. Oh well. The walls were now shaking so hard it seemed that they were going to crumble, but still the faces smiled at me. As I inched closer, their eyes followed me. I was now between the 2 bodies, a few feet away from the door. The dismembered hands crawled their way across the carpet towards me, all while the faces continued to stare. A new terror washed over me, and I walked faster. I didn't want to hear them speak. I didn't want the voices to match those of my parents. I began to open their mouths, and their hands were inches away from my feet. In a dash of desperation, I lunged towards the door, threw it open, and slammed it behind me. Roommate. I was done. After what I just experienced, I knew there wasn't anything else this fucking house could throw at me that I couldn't fucking live through. There's nothing short of the fires of hell that I wasn't ready for. Unfortunately, I underestimated the abilities of Noah and House. Unfortunately, things got more disturbing, more terrifying, and more unspeakable in Roommate. I had trouble believing what I saw in Roommate still. Again, the room was a copy of 3 and 6, but sitting in the usually empty chair was a man. After a few seconds of disbelief, my mind finally accepted the fact a man was sitting in a chair was me. Not someone who looked at me. It was David Williams. I walked closer. I had to get a better look. Even though I was sure of it, he looked up at me, and I noticed tears in his eyes. Please, please don't do it. Please don't hurt me. What? I asked. Who are you? I'm not gonna hurt you. Yes, you are. He was sobbing now. You're going to hurt me, and I don't want you to. He sat in the chair with his legs up and began rocking back and forth. It was actually pretty pathetic looking, especially since he was me, identical in every way. Listen, who are you? I was now only a few feet away from my doppelganger. It was the weirdest experience yet. Standing there, talking to myself, I wasn't scared, but I would be soon. Why are you? You're going to hurt me. You're going to hurt me. If you want to leave, you're going to hurt me. Why are you saying this? Just calm down, alright? Let's try and figure this. And I saw it. The David sitting down was wearing the same clothes as me, except for a small red patch on his shirt, embroidered with the number 9. You're going to hurt me. You're going to hurt me. Please don't. You're going to hurt me. My eyes didn't leave the small number on his chest. I knew exactly what it was. The first few doors were plain and simple. But after a while, they got a little bit more ambiguous. 7 was scratched into a wall, but by my own hands. 8 was marked in blood above the bodies of my parents, but 9 was on a person, a living person. Worse still, a person that looked exactly like me. David? I had to ask. Yes, you're going to hurt me. You're going to hurt me. He continued to sob and rust. He answered to David. He was me, right down to the voice. But that 9, I paced around for a few minutes while he sobbed in his chair. The room had no door, and similar to room 6, the door I came through was gone. For some reason, I assumed scratching would get me nowhere this time. I studied the walls and floor around the chair, sticking my head underneath to see if anything was below. Unfortunately, there was. Below the chair was a knife. Attached to that was a tag that read to David from management. The feeling in my stomach as I read that tag was something sinister. I felt like throwing up. The last thing I wanted to do was remove that knife from under the chair. The other David was still sobbing uncontrollably as my mind was spinning into the attic of unanswerable questions. Who put this here, and how did they know my name? Not to mention the fact that as I knelt on the cold wood floor, I also sat in the chair, sobbing in protest of being hurt by myself. It was all too much to process. The house and the management had been playing with me this whole time. My thoughts, for some reason, turned to Peter, and whether or not he got this far, and if he did, if he met a Peter Terry sobbing in this very chair, rocking back and forth. I shook those thoughts out of my head. They didn't matter. I took the knife from under the chair, and immediately the other David went quiet. David? He said in my voice. What are you going to do? I lifted myself up from the ground and clenched the knife in my hand. I'm going to get out of here.
I'm about to split.
Oh, okay. Right. Be good. Ugh. David was still sitting in the chair, although he was very calm now. He looked at me, up at me with a slight grin. I couldn't tell if he was going to laugh or strangle me. Slowly, he got up from the chair and stood, facing me. It was uncanny. His height and even the way he stood matched mine. I felt the rubber hilt of the knife in my hand and gripped it tighter. I don't know what I was planning on doing with it, but I had a feeling I was going to need it. Now, his voice was slightly deeper than my own. I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to hurt you and keep you here. I didn't respond. I lunged and tackled him to the ground. I mounted him and looked down, knife poised and ready. He looked up at me, terrified. It was like I was looking at a mirror. Then the hum returned, low and distant, though I still felt it deep in my body. David looked up at me as I looked down at myself. The hum was getting louder, and I felt something inside me snap. I slammed the knife into the patch on his chest and ripped down. Blackness fell on the room, and I was falling. The darkness around me was like nothing I had experienced up to that point. Room 4 was dark, but it did not come close to what was completely engulfing me. Even if I wasn't sure if I was falling after a while, I felt weightless, covered in dark, and then a deep sadness came over me. I felt lost, depressed, and The sight of my parents entered my mind. I knew it wasn't real, but I had seen it, and the mind has trouble differentiating what is real and what isn't. Sadness only deepened. I was in room 9 for what seemed like days. The final room. And that's exactly what it is. What it was. The end. No end house had an end, and I had reached it. At that moment, I gave up. I knew I'd be in that in-between state forever, accompanied by nothing but darkness. Would you shut your ass? Shut! Shut before I lift you up and bother you. My gosh. Hush! I knew I'd be in that in-between state forever, accompanied by nothing but darkness. Not even the hum was there to keep me sane. I lost all senses. I couldn't feel myself. I couldn't hear anything. Sight was completely useless here. I searched for a taste in my mouth and I found nothing. I felt disembodied and completely lost. I knew where I was. This was hell. Room 9 was hell. Then it happened. A light. One of those stereotypical lights at the end of the tunnel. I felt the ground come up from below me and I was standing. After a moment or two of gathering my thoughts and senses, I slowly walked towards the light. As I approached the light, it took form. It was a vertical slit down the side of an unmarked door. I slowly walked through the door and found myself right back where I started. The lobby of No End House. It was exactly how I left it. Still empty, still decorated with the childish Halloween decorations. After everything happened that night, I was still wary of where I was. After a few moments of normalcy, I looked around the place, trying to find anything different. On the desk was a plain white envelope with my name handwritten on it. Immensely curious, yet still cautious, I mustered up the courage to open up the envelope. Inside was a letter, again handwritten. David Williams, congratulations. You made it to the end of No End House. Please accept this prize as a token of great achievement. Yours forever, Management. With the letter were 5 $100 bills. I couldn't stop laughing. I laughed for what seemed like hours. I laughed as I locked out my car and laughed as I drove home. I laughed as I pulled up in my driveway. And I laughed as I opened my front door to my house. And as I saw the small 10 etched into the wood. And that was No End House. Credited to Brian Russell. Originally uploaded on June 30th, 2011. I'm going to eat you, Cheeto. Apparently my cat thinks I have better things to be doing than recording a video. Anyways. That was Spooky Scary Saturday number 68. Creepypasta reading number 11. Please leave suggestions for anything you might... No, I don't think anything is worth all that. I don't think there's anything you could ever offer me that would make all that bull worth it. Like, initially the thought is there, because, you know, there's plenty of haunted houses that have a gimmick. Like, you get through the house, you get da-da-da-da-da. Right? Like, there's sometimes a prize at the end of the haunted house or whatever. I get what the thought was. But David's a fucking moron. don't do haunted houses, and not because I'm scared, but I don't do them because I don't feel like it. There's no reason for me to do it. Like, I know all the stuff in that house is fake. So, like, why bother? And if I were to go to an actual haunted place, then that's just scary. There's no fun to be had with it for me. I always hope for that amount of bullshit that you'd not only had a bunch of zeros, but maybe some immortality into the mix. Well, you know, that might make it slightly worth it. But then you'd just be alive forever in the no-end house. Yeah, hard pass on the no-end house for me too. Anyways, that was everything, everybody. Please enjoy the rest of your day, night, afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you are. I'm going to enjoy my night because it is nighttime where I am. As always, remember to stay out of traffic. Stay out of small spaces you can get trapped in. Stay out of car engine compartments and any engine compartment, really. Stay hydrated. Stay awesome, possums. I love you all. Good night. And have an awesome possum night. Thanks for hanging out. Hope to hang out with you again soon.